Here we are. You're in the right place if you want to talk about the gamification of sales. How to turn learning zombies into learning superheroes too. And it's all about using games, gaming technology to motivate and modernize your relationship with your staff and their skills. Our next speaker is unique and vivid, it says here. And you're really going to enjoy yourselves over the next half hour. So I'm going to step out of the way and hand you over to the Managing Director of Growth Engineering, Juliette Denny. Round of applause, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for choosing to be here, as opposed to the other room. Really appreciate that. I'm missing a clicker. Does anyone know where one might be? Right. If somebody could organise me that, I will just kick off by saying, I need some help. Have I got an audience that is willing to give me some help? Yes? Fantastic. Okay. Because something dawned on me as I walked into the room of this ISM conference, and as I have done in many ISM conferences, and I need a little bit of help with that for this time next year, okay? So the first thing I'm going to say is, how many people in the room want to increase their revenue? Okay, great. How many people in the room want to increase their profitability? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask you if you can help by doing me this one thing. This time next year, when you come to this conference, because I know you will, because it's been awesome already, right? What I'd like you to do is I would like you to bring one female colleague. Girls in the room, please stand up. Girls in the room, please stand up. This is not 40% of the room, okay? The 40% of women work in sales. So what I'd really like your help on, guys, girls and boys, I would like you to make next year the first year that the ISM gets the representative amount of women in the room. Who's up for it? Hey! Excellent. Thank you very much. Right, well, that's where we're going to start, but obviously my presentation is nothing to do with women in sales. It is to do with how we make sales training absolutely fantastically awesome, such that the people in our organization want to learn more and they become passionate advocates for our brand and our customers. So who am I and why am I standing here? My name is Juliette Denny and I run an organization called Growth Engineering. And we came into the market about 10, 15 years ago with the absolute goal of turning learning and development on its head. Our mantra is, our mission is, we wage war on dull online learning in order to make the people that are going through sales training passionate about their own development. If we can get our individual, and we've just had a whole fantastic speech on engagement, if we can get people to really take an interest in their own development, then bingo, you know, we can rip off the lid, increase revenue, increase profitability. And that's really what we're all about. So we're pretty good at what we do. I don't need to go into the details. Suffice it to say that, yeah, we're pretty damn good at it. So, sales training. The bleeding obvious, let's start with it. If we don't train our people, we won't grow. The more we do, the more they know about the problems we solve, the more they know about the products in which we sell, the more likely they are to be able to make profit for us, maximize our profitability, and maximize our turnover. It's a big deal, learning and development, and those organizations that do train do absolutely gain. The more we invest in sales training, whatever that looks like, whether it's mentor-on coaching, whether it's full certification, the reality is that it does make a difference to the win rates and the success rates. The other thing it makes a massive difference to is our attrition rates. And we've just been told how expensive it is to have people within our organization that come and leave. The key thing is with sales as well. I mean, I work in the software and software space. It is absolutely complicated. You know, for us to train up somebody, it's going to take 9 months. And I'm sure many of you, how many people in the room sell complex products? Complex, long sales cycles. On average, how long does it take you to train somebody up? 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. It's a long time. And then for that person to go, obviously, this is not what we want. So sales training matters because for every $1 we invest in training, the reality is that we can get $29 back if it's done right, okay? And some of the things during this presentation, I'm actually going to talk about that. So Sales development is all well and good, but the reality is when you say to most salespeople, right, we want to take you off the road and we want to, do a sales development program, they go, no, that's just not going to work for me, because then what I've got to do is I've got to do my job and I've got to do the sales training as well. Salespeople don't have a lot of time, and this is why you hear this buzzword, sales enablement, all the time, because what sales enablement means is we're not going to take you on the road, we're just going to train you as you're doing your normal job. That's pretty much what that means in a nutshell. And so this is the year of sales enablement, guys. So you're going to see loads of companies offering lots of different kind of creative solutions with regards to sales enablement. So the reality is that for some organizations, for lots of organizations, sales training is just something that gets kicked down the road. Now, it might be something that you guys do on onboarding. It might be, come in, speak to our technical people, do this, do that. Right, you finish your 3 months. Now you're going to be mentored and coached by your manager for 3 months. Then, soz, it's over, right? You don't really get formal sales training. But the reality is that without that ongoing sales training and without that ongoing development, what we don't get is we don't get really, really impassioned business people that can basically challenge client assumptions and really add value. I think John mentioned it this morning, the challenger sale. This is really where the highest conversion rates and the highest revenue profitability sales-wise happens, when we get our salespeople to really act as champions for the client, right? And so that doesn't happen in the first 6 months of sales development. That happens over the longer period, right? So to make matters worse, most sales training solutions just don't make the grade. And there's lots and lots of reasons for this. It could be that those sales training, and we're going to come to a slide on it in a minute about the forgetting curve. People go into a classroom, they take an event, it might be a piece of e-learning, and then what happens? They just forget it, right? I mean, the reality is that it just gets completely forgotten. The other thing that might happen is that it might not be relevant enough. So when we buy in solutions, sometimes what happens is we buy in generic solutions and they're not tailored enough to the questions that our clients really do ask. So they're not tailored around the objections. And again, going back to John's point on the playbook, absolutely critical that we make them relevant for what we're actually doing. The other thing is that if we're not monitoring and managing and actually showing how those individuals are embedding what they've learnt, again, no change is made at the organization. And the reality is that learning is changing organizational behavior and creating operational excellence is hard because of this bad boy. And this bad boy has been around forever. This is the forgetting curve. How many of you are familiar with the forgetting curve? Okay, a couple of you in the audience. What the forgetting curve tells you is that this time next week, okay, I can guarantee you will remember nothing of what I've said. Okay, so that's not demotivating for me because I've known about this guy for a long while. But the reality is that if we are not constantly going over that same information, the reality is that our people will have forgotten it, okay? So we need to have sales solutions and sales training which really does focus on eliminating the forgetting curve from the get-go. But the other thing is we need to go further than that, okay? And this is a model that is all about how people learn. So this morning we had talks about, robots and everything that's coming in the future and all of that great stuff. But the reality is humans don't evolve that quickly, okay? We've always learned in a certain way. So what you're looking at behind is a model about how we get passionate about learning, which is what we are all about in this room, okay? What we know is as individuals, if we are not learning, okay, we don't feel motivated about what we're doing. Now, this could be learning about anything: football, hockey, music, ballroom dancing, the product that we're selling. But we have, in order to feel alive, in order to feel engaged, in order to feel motivated, we have to feel like we are moving on and we are learning something new. So let me tell you about how this model works, okay? We can get that engagement, we can get that excitement and that passion in and around learning if we understand this model for self-determinism, okay? What this says is that in order for organizations to change, and in order for organizations to become learning organizations, what we need to do is we need to put the onus on the learner for loving their learning, for wanting to be that change. And this is what this says. First of all, we need to show them that they are getting competent, okay? And again, I'll show you how gamification comes into them. So we need to show them progress of how they are getting to that stage of competence. So it's not only the content that we're providing, but we need to show them how they're getting that competence. That's number one. The second thing is we need to show how that competence relates to their job, okay? So again, going back to what we were talking about this morning in terms of CRM, you are now competent at your job. As a result, you have been able to achieve the following growth in your sales figures, okay? There needs to be something that relates it to that. There also needs to be something that relates not only their progress and what they've achieved, but also the actual knowledge that they're learning. So when we talk about product, how is that relating to objection handling? And then the final thing that we need to do is we need to give them the autonomy to take that knowledge and explain it to other people, okay? Because we learn best when we are able to explain what we've learned, relate what we've learned to the people that we're working with. Okay, so this is the model of how people learn. Once you internalize that, it's much easier to pick learning solutions that make a massive impact on your organization. And the final thing we need to do is we are all busy. There was a survey that went out, and when people say, how was last year? Pick one word. The most common word for people is busy, okay? So if you ask people, can you just fit this in? Can you just do this? The reality is that they'll say no. That's the first thought they'll run through. I'm already too busy. I don't have time to do anything else. That's not what we want when we're launching a new sales development solution. What we want is we want people to gravitate towards it. We want people to say, hell yeah, I want to watch Netflix. Hell yeah, I want to go and, do gaming or whatever it might be. So we've got to, in order to change this behavior, people have to gravitate towards wanting to be developed, loving the idea that they're developing. And one of the ways we do that is by putting some fun in it. And of course, it needs to be professional. The other thing that we know is that people are transitioning from their jobs to other jobs. In terms of the amount of careers that people will have in their lives, they will have a lot varied careers in their lives, this generation of learners. So what we know is that professional qualifications like the ISM qualifications make a big difference. And we've seen this, I've got some case studies later on in the presentation, that show what a big impact professional qualifications do make in terms of that attrition rate. So it is an elusive combination, but however, we have seen some huge success in some of the case studies that we've worked with on the ISM. So the reality is that it might be that we know what the sales training is, but actually embedding it to make it something that people really do want to gravitate towards is difficult. But not that difficult, because you guys, how many people here have heard of gamification? Excellent, fantastic, good. I'm not talking to an uneducated audience when it comes to gamification then. The problem is that a lot of learning technology solutions, as John was saying this morning in terms of CRM as well, they are doomed to failure. People don't necessarily like new things, okay? So again, this is where the gamification could come in and help. The reality is that people don't like new things. Their first instinct is to back away. Anything that is hard to do, people need a huge amount of encouragement to get started. And often when we say we're going to learn online or we're going to introduce a new CRM system, the first thing they're going to have a feeling of dread, okay? And this is why this implementation figure is so high. 92% of new software implementations fail. And this is why gamification and social and all of these funner elements are really being introduced to a lot of new enterprise and consumer platforms. So gamification is not the answer, but it is one of the answers, okay? So let's start with what is gamification. So gamification is not turning everything into a game, okay? That is not what gamification is. We are not going to take all of your sales training programs and then magically turn them into like a shoot 'em up game. No, that is not what we're going to do, okay? What we are actually going to do is we are going to use gaming mechanics. Okay, so these are the things that make the game work. So it is things like creating curiosity, spacing out narrative. It is things like the element of surprise. It is things like a reward. It is things like a recognition. It is things like points and badges. And it is things like peril. It is things, this is what we mean. Okay, so introducing elements of typical gaming mechanics that you might find in other areas into the sales training program to engage, incite, excite, delight, ignite the sales training program, okay? That is what we are talking about. So an example of these, and that you will have seen in your consumer life the whole time, loyalty cards. How many of you got loyalty cards? Points mean prizes, and you keep going back because you're loyal to the supermarket. Air miles, how many of you, I don't know, I travel far too much at the moment, and the majority of that is on British Airways because I'm trying to get to the next tier. Ridiculous, even though I think they suck. Fitness trackers, how many of you are massive Fitbit addicts? I know I am, I'm checking it all the time. So these are good examples of gamified applications, and what we want to do is bring those gaming mechanics, those points, those prizes, those leaderboards into our sales development program. Gamification just works in sales, guys. It just does, okay? Because, we've had gamification since the year dot, okay? We've always been gamified in sales. I started my career from sales, and I consider myself my number one job as the CEO of growth engineering to sell. I sell internally, I sell externally, and I absolutely love it. And I know that I'm on a leaderboard every single day because I walk out and I try and convert sales, and it's only by winning and being at the top of the leaderboard that we manage to grow at the rate that we currently are. So salespeople are used to gamification. They're just used to it. They just know it. They know that badges, the more they do, the more they get. The more activity they do, the more higher they climb up the leaderboard, and the more likely they are to hit their sales targets. Who here uses Hoopla? You use Hoopla. Absolutely fantastic. Don't you love it? Yeah. So Hoopla is the most fantastic real-time leaderboard that is it attaches to your CRM, and you can see at any point how many calls, how many trips, how many proposals your sales guys are sending out. Massively dynamic, big in terms of community, and just a really fantastic way to get people really excited and engaged and collaborating with some of the other guys in their team. So let's now really zone down on what gamification might look like in learning technologies. And I should start by saying that I haven't got any slides from other gamified technology companies out there. There are lots and lots, but I'm just going to include the ones that I know about so I can speak more readily on them. So the first thing they look at is badges and XP. Now let me talk to you about how important badges and XP are when we're embarking on something new and frightening. When we have rolled out some of our sales excellence programs for some of our other organizations, there will always be an element of people within your sales team that say, you know what, I've seen it all before. I've just been here for so long. There is nothing new that you guys can teach me. And quite frankly, it would be a lot better use of your time to keep me out on the road, to keep me doing what I do best, rather than dragging me into the classroom or making me do a bunch of e-learning or looking at my mobile phone. Okay? So resistance is there, people. We know it. We've all come up against it. But what the badges and XP give us, as a very, very esteemed a guy called Ralph Costa, who is known as the father of gaming mechanics, what he says is that gaming mechanics and fun elements like badges and XP allow us to climb up the engagement mountain, okay? So what we're doing there is we're doing a bit of sleight of hand. We're saying, yes, you've got to do something hard, but for doing that, you are going to be rewarded, you are going to be praised, and you're going to collaborate, and you're going to compete against your colleagues. And what that makes people do is actually gravitate and actually engage with your learning solution in a way they wouldn't otherwise do. And I can promise you this is the fact. So we rolled out a very large sales training program for a aggregate company, sort of average age, 50, 55, long serving sales force. This was actually based down in Australia. And when we walked in, this was a good 8 years ago, they were like, oh my God, blooming gamification company. What is that all about? This is just, we're professional aggregate concrete salesmen. We don't need this young bunch of crazy technology people coming in here telling us what to do. Well, by day one, right, we had people out there that didn't have Facebook accounts, now had Facebook accounts, didn't have Twitter accounts, now had Twitter accounts, all sorts of behavior because they were trying to compete to get up the leaderboard, okay? And from that, what you got is that automatic engagement with the platform and that automatic engagement with, yes, I am going to be the absolute best I can in pursuing and showing how I am applying my new sales knowledge, okay? So gamification just does work for different audiences, okay? So levels is another key thing. So we've worked with clients. Levels is all about progression. And do you remember that model that I was showing you before, all about self-determination? Levels, this is where we show progress. In order for people to keep on a journey of hard things, okay, what we need to do is we need to show them progress. So every tiny little thing that they do, what do? We praise them. Just like when we're bringing up a child, what do? We praise to get them to flourish and grow, right? This is exactly what a levels chart is. But what we can do with levels, okay, we can make it super exciting. So one of our clients is Hard Rock Cafe. When they start off at Hard Rock Cafe, okay, they start off singing in the shower. And then they move up to being a busker. Then they basically are allowed to, create their own band name. And then eventually, once they've gone through all of their XP, done all their learning, show how they've applied it, what they're allowed to do is sing at Madison Square Garden. We've got another client, Steinhoff. They're a South African company. When you first start with the company, you start off as a tiny little mouse. And then, as you progress through your journey, you end up king of the jungle, right? So what's the first thing that people talk about? Where are you on your sales development journey? Where are you? Are you a mouse? Are you a gazelle? Well, because, I'm a lion and I'm coming to get your ass. This is the kind of thing that we want in sales development. And levels really do work really well on that. The other thing is we have to have in sales, of course, is the leaderboard. The leaderboard are absolutely critical. So what we need is we need leaderboards that don't only say who is number one and who is the bottom, we also need to say leaderboards who's moved most in any one week. Okay, so we need to again show that level of progression. And leaderboards work really, really well in getting people to be self-motivated and excited. The other thing is that it's about curiosity. So on a learning platform that's gamified, you'll have different types of badges and XP for different types of things that you want people to do. So you might have a situation where they've got some for learning. They must have some for how they're applying that learning. They must have some for asking questions of the community. They must have some in terms of answering questions back from the community. And we must have some simply for going on at 10 o'clock at night and getting the night owl badge, or getting the Sherlock Holmes badge for searching content, right? So we need to have badges that are easy to get, you don't really need to do anything, all the way up to the really tough badges. But they need to have all of those elements. Just giving badges for one thing won't work. It won't work because you're not creating curiosity. So you need a full gamified strategy in order to really get gamification to work for you. The other thing you need to do is you need a reward center. So you need somewhere for people to go on, take their learning, show that they're actually being developed, show that learning is actually making a difference. And then what they need to do is they need to be able to redeem it for something that's important. Now, one thing that we do know that we have seen time and time again from working with companies like HP and Cisco is that you cannot give away stuff for learning, okay? Because if you do that, it devalues what you're doing. So we work with lots of clients that for time immemorial have always done that. It doesn't mean working with us changes that. The reality is that we're tiny, they're massive. So, it doesn't make any difference. But we do know what the theory tells us is that if that individual wants to be developed, as soon as you start applying gifts or monetary rewards for being developed, you devalue the development that they're getting. So it's very, very important that you focus on the intrinsic rewards that individual will get. Things like promotional opportunities, CPD, working for a charity, whatever, 1 day a week, whatever it might be, rather than actually give them gifts for training. So what else works? The other thing is that mobile. Mobile is absolutely critical. We were hearing this morning about how everybody works on their mobile. I know from my own time working, I probably spend 90% of my time working on my mobile because I am on the move. The web is not something that I am going to visit very often. The other thing is that the way we use our mobiles is very different, okay? So I would say that I probably check my mobile about 150 times a day. Who's with me on that? Exactly right. I don't know about you guys, but I actually have slight anxiety. If I haven't touched it for 5 seconds, I'm like, where's my mobile? So the reality is that it is all about mobile learning now. So if you have not kicked off a learning solution for the next 5 years, 10 years of your company's development, you need to be going mobile first here. So one of the things that we've been doing a lot of is these micro moments of learning, right? So rather than sending people on something that could be, a day's course or, an hour's worth of e-learning or whatever it might be, what we're going to do is we're going to send you on a learning quest. And that learning quest can literally be created by anybody. And the great thing about a learning quest, again, it's gamified. So here what you've got is you've got a gaming template. So they're doing a little bit of gaming, but they're also learning about new stuff. And there's a leaderboard attached to it. Is that what they're getting is they're getting a micro moment of learning every single day. And going back to the forgetting curve, going back to how we get engagement, this is a much more likely scenario to actually work and change organizational behavior than one big thump. So going back to what John was saying this morning about the playbook, this is a great way to get a micro moment of your playbook in every single day and get it reinforced. The second thing that we're doing is we're doing battles, okay? So salespeople are competing every single day for, to be the best at sales in their organization. So why not get them to compete who is the best at a certain area of product knowledge? And the way we do this is we don't ask our training department to test our people because that's demotivational, it's big brotherish, it's just not the way, the current generation want to learn. What we do is we create the subject matter experts, create the pools, the product pools, question pools, and then it's really just a question of them battling it out. And again, this can be 5 questions a day for as big as the question pool is. The idea is that what you're trying to do is get your audience, get the people at the front line to be responsible for how much they actually know about your products, your services, and sales. So these player-to-player battles are proving a lot more exciting. And again, it is only 5 minutes of their life, but it's reinforced every single day. So just a great way to beat the forgetting curve. The next thing is that we know, and again, going back to this self-determination model, is that unless we get the community to own the change will not happen, okay? So we know that elements of the community will be resistant, but if we bring those people in by setting them challenges and getting the community to create challenges, what we will have is a learning culture and that looks after itself, that creates the questions that are actually asked out there and that actually can be asked by people at the coalface. So once you've done your training, once you've tested and reinforced your training through battles, this is what is left, a legacy of excellence which is upheld by the community. And again, ranked, rated, leaderboards, all showing very clearly who's making progression and who is actually championing the furtherment of the organization, who is making a difference. So these are one of the things that we've done for the ISMM, and you're going to get I know there's a talk this afternoon because our content is also being used by the ISMM on a US platform as well, so you're going to hear a bit more about this then. But this is actually the ISM's content, so this is their qualifications. How many of you are familiar with the ISM qualifications? Okay, some of you. So this content is basically level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. It goes all the way up, but it's served in a bite-sized chunks. And so what we've been doing with our clients is rolling out the main certification program, and I'll show you that a little bit later, but then reinforcement to make sure that that standard of excellence is being repeated again and again and again and embedded constantly. The reality is that what we really need to do is rather than look at learning as one big dump. I just want to get the learning done. Okay, for the next 2 years, we're going to train our people, okay? We're going to train our people for the next 2 years, okay? We're going to bring them off the road. We're going to, put them in a classroom, or we're going to, get a whole load of e-learning. We're going to get some coaching done. And then, well, I don't necessarily know what's going to happen about that, but we just need to get it done, right? We just need to get it done. If we could just get it done, right, we'd be future-proof for the next 10 years. Unfortunately not, right? Unfortunately not. Really, what we need to do is we need to have a gradual, steady, drip, micro-learning reinforcement culture. So it's going to be slower, but it's going to bring more people in, and it's going to allow them to go on to the journey. The other thing that we absolutely have to do is we need to allow a two-way discussion. We spoke a bit earlier about how the younger generation of people are changing, and they are changing. They are very, very different. I personally employ quite a lot of them, and it's been absolutely wonderful seeing the difference in how I think and how they think. The reality is that they have to have a voice. They are used to having a voice. And if we don't give them a voice within our sales training programs, we're doomed to failure. That could just be asking questions. But very soon, they'll be able to answer questions because they're bright, they're smart, they're passionate, and they love your organization. So the reality is the more they are able to talk, the more you're able to facilitate that conversation, and the more you're able to hold on to that knowledge. We have lots of clients that say, yeah, you know, what, it's absolutely fantastic, you know, that you guys have got social learning, but I mean, our guys use WhatsApp. Well, I appreciate that they use WhatsApp, but that ain't helping you, is it, sunshine? Because the reality is that all that good knowledge on WhatsApp is walking out the door. So they are talking, it's just you might not see it. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that learning and development know what is going on in that conversation so that we can provide the types of content and the types of interactions that basically facilitate a high-growth organization. The other thing is that we need to make it relevant. The whole sheep dip thing is just over, guys. It is absolutely over. We don't have the time, we don't have the resources, and to be honest with you, we can't waste. As soon as we send out a classroom training program that is not personalized to each individual job role, to be honest with you, we're doomed. Because what we're effectively saying is, actually, I don't care about you enough not to sheep dip. Because you're just the same as everybody else. And whilst that might have flown for previous generations, it doesn't fly for this generation. Because everybody is as an individual, as we know, right? Everybody is unique in this generation. So if they're unique, what you need to do is tailor the program. And again, this is very, very simple with a lot of basic learning technology content. So let's quickly just look from some examples. Just do a quick time check. So these are obviously examples that we have. Oh, I'm overrunning. Is that all right? So we'll quickly, sorry guys, oh God, she's overrunning. Right, let's see some examples. Aggregate industries, 300 people we put through the ISM qualifications. A 98% pass rate, but also huge amounts of savings, not only in terms of the actual budget that they saved, but also in terms of the amount of time that the guys didn't have to spend in classroom. So this is online learning, reinforced through gamification. We've been working with aggregate industries, not only here, but also in Australia. I touched on that briefly, for about 7 years now. And it's worked phenomenally in terms of the way they think about themselves. And you'll probably see them tonight at the Bessemer Awards for those of you who are going, because they'll be screaming and shouting and basically very proud of what they've achieved. The Tech Data Academy, again, ISM content, but in a gamified learning management structure. So proactive users that use the TD Academy outperformed inactive users by 75%. Huge amounts of productivity, huge amounts of increases in sales from the Tech Data Academy as well. And then finally, the IFF Academy. The interesting thing about the IFF Academy is that this is a total global solution. So this is being rolled out to about 36 different countries. So wherever in the world you operate, the ISM content and a gamified strategy works. It works particularly well in Asia. So any of you guys that have got Asian operations, we've got quite a few different rollouts out in Asia. And I can tell you, they really do know their social and gamification. They absolutely love it. So the reality is that by injecting a little bit of fun, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of narrative in and around sales development programs, what we really can do is we can really allow people to unleash their inner superheroes, and that's really what growth engineering we're all about. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Stay there, Juliet. What we're going to do is I'm going to tell you the choices you've got ahead now, because there's another room with a good person to speak there. We're going to be talking to Danielle Disney here in a second. But if you want to make that transition, please go to the other room. Miles Kingston, who's going to go through his personal toolkit to give you ideas and techniques, which he says could, listen to this, double or triple your sales appointments. So please make your way to the other room now, if you would. Tom Moverley of the ISM is looking after him. Do that, but while we're making the transition and other people will come in, I will allow you to answer a couple of questions from the audience. What a tornado this woman.
I'll be delighted.
Any questions for Juliet? Gentleman there in the blue shirt. Can we get a little mic over? Yep, cool. Miles Kingston in the other room.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you firstly for the presentation. Really interesting stuff, awesome products as well. It's kind of like being back in classroom really and getting a gold star for reading The Hungry Caterpillar. And I like the way that you'll be able to progress through the social media aspect of it as well. But in a similar situation, how are you managing to engage perhaps, obviously for a sales team, it's going to work really efficiently because we're all really motivated, we're driven, we want to be better than each other. For perhaps other departments within the company where they're not as driven, how are you making sure that you can get that to them?
Well, kind of that's our bread and butter. People just love narrative. I mean, what always amazes me, to be honest with you, is we do go into some organizations and maybe they've got an average age pool which is a little bit older, and they will say, no, sorry, gamification is not for us. And I think it's the word. And there's quite a big backlash in the industry now because gamification has been such a buzzword to actually change, what it's called, because there is a backlash. What we have found, I was speaking at the Gamification Summit in Stockholm a couple of weeks ago, and it's really interesting because the whole idea of gamification has changed, and people are realizing that you can't just attach XP badges and leaderboards and expect it to work. There's lots of things that go in and around a gamified strategy, and a lot of that has to do with dovetailing into the epic meaning. So again, our brilliant speaker talking about engagement this morning, that epic meaning. So when we say, what does it mean to work for growth engineering, or what does it mean to work for AstraZeneca, it means to save lives. That progression bar and that levels bar is really critical to basically create that narrative. So whether it is Steinhoff and we're talking about animals, or whether it is Hard Rock Cafe and we're talking about music, or whether it is Spotify and we're talking about, being, the master of a certain music genre. The reality is that what attracts us to working for that organization is a deep core and a deep kind of sense of passion that you are going to flourish at that organization. And what we need to do with that epic meaning piece, and I didn't talk about it today, but there's basically 3 prongs of the engagement engines. There's the gamification, there's the personalization, and then the narrative, and then there's the social aspect. So if we get all of those right, we've got a really powerful gamified solution. But it is not a one-size-fits-all. So we can't take the aggregate gamification solution and just plonk it into Spotify. We need to have a completely fresh thinking, which is in and around their vision, their values, their epic meaning, and that engagement strategy they've got. Thanks.
Cracking. That's where we've got to leave it for this session. Please, a big round of applause again for Juliet, Denny. Super stuff.